World War I wasn't all trenches and gunfights. Soldiers fought in chainmail armor, carried pigeons for communication, and some even died because of chocolate. What really happened during that war will shock you beyond belief, and most of it was never taught in school.
Number 13. The Battle of the Some's Unthinkable Cost. July 1st, 1916 became the bloodiest single day in British military history when the Battle of the Somme began with catastrophic losses. British forces suffered nearly 60,000 casualties in just one day, with 19,240 killed outright. The battle continued for 4 months, ultimately claiming over 1 million casualties from all sides. The offensive was designed to break the stalemate on the Western Front and relieve pressure on French forces at Verdun. Instead, it became a symbol of the war's futility and the horrific cost of frontal assaults against entrenched positions. Soldiers went over the top into no man's land, walking slowly toward German machine gun positions due to orders that assumed artillery would have destroyed enemy defenses. The reality was far different. German forces had survived in deep bunkers and emerged to devastating effect. Despite gaining only 6 miles of territory, the battle introduced new tactics and technologies, including the first use of tanks in combat. The Somme became a watershed moment that shattered romantic notions of warfare and demonstrated the industrial scale of modern conflict.
Number 12. The Christmas Truce. Christmas Eve 1914 witnessed one of history's most remarkable displays of human compassion when soldiers on both sides of the Western Front spontaneously declared an unofficial truce. German soldiers began singing Christmas carols and placed candles on their trenches, prompting British and French troops to respond with their own songs. What followed was extraordinary. Soldiers climbed out of their trenches to meet in no man's land, exchanging gifts of cigarettes, chocolate, and small personal items. They buried their dead together, held joint religious services, and even played football matches between the trenches. Some accounts describe soldiers showing family photographs and sharing stories about their lives before the war. The truce occurred along various parts of the front, involving thousands of soldiers who just hours earlier had been trying to kill each other. Military commanders on both sides were horrified by this outbreak of humanity and quickly banned such fraternization, threatening court-martial for future incidents. The Christmas truce became a powerful symbol of the common humanity that persisted even in warfare's darkest moments. It demonstrated that even in the midst of industrial-scale killing, individual soldiers could still recognize their shared humanity with their enemies.
I have a question for you. First, I would like to say that it is possible to follow the greatest curiosities of our world every day. But to do so, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So, are you already subscribed? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Also, take the opportunity to like the video so YouTube will recommend more videos from our channel. So leave your like right now. And now that you have done that, let's go!
Number 11. The Russian Revolution's devastating chain reaction. World War I didn't just end the Russian Empire, it obliterated it completely and replaced it with something far more radical. By 1917, Russia had lost over 1.7 million soldiers, and the economy was collapsing under the war's strain. Bread riots in Petrograd sparked the February Revolution, forcing Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate and ending 3 centuries of Romanov rule. The provisional government decision to continue fighting sealed its fate as war-weary Russians demanded peace. Vladimir Lenin, smuggled back into Russia with German assistance, promised peace, land, and bread. The October Revolution brought the Bolsheviks to power, and Lenin immediately signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, taking Russia out of the war. This decision freed up massive German forces for the Western Front, nearly changing the war's outcome. The revolution's consequences extended far beyond Russia's borders, inspiring communist movements worldwide and establishing the Soviet Union as a major power. The war had created the conditions for the world's first communist state, setting the stage for the Cold War and fundamentally altering global politics for the next 70 decades. Number 10. Technological revolution in the sky. World War I witnessed aviation's rapid evolution from curiosity to crucial military tool in just 4 years. At the war's start, aircraft were fragile, slow machines used primarily for reconnaissance. By 1918, they had become sophisticated weapons platforms capable of air-to-air combat, strategic bombing, and ground attack missions. The first fighter planes were literally airplanes with machine guns mounted on them, but synchronization gear allowing guns to fire through propeller blades revolutionized aerial combat. This led to the rise of legendary ace pilots like Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, who shot down 80 enemy aircraft before his death in 1918. Air combat tactics evolved rapidly, from individual duels to coordinated squadron attacks. The war saw the first strategic bombing campaigns, with German Zeppelins and later aircraft attacking British cities, introducing civilians to the horror of aerial warfare. By war's end, aircraft were being mass-produced like automobiles, with major powers manufacturing thousands of planes annually. The psychological impact of air warfare was enormous. The sky was no longer a safe haven, but another battlefield. This aerial revolution laid the groundwork for air power's decisive role in future conflicts and established aviation as a crucial military technology.
Number 9. Future dictators in the trenches. The muddy trenches of World War I forged some of history's most influential leaders, including its most notorious dictator. The German leader of the Second World War served as a messenger in the Bavarian Infantry Regiment, surviving multiple gas attacks and temporary blindness. His war experience radicalized his worldview and fueled his later rise to power. Winston Churchill, who would later lead Britain through World War II, served as a battalion commander on the Western Front after his disastrous Gallipoli campaign. Harry Truman, future U.S. president, commanded an artillery battery in France and later said the war taught him about leadership under pressure. Charles de Gaulle, wounded 3 times and captured at Verdun, developed the military theories that would guide French resistance in World War II. Even Stalin, though not on the front lines, used the war's chaos to consolidate power within the Bolshevik movement. These men's wartime experiences shaped their political philosophies and leadership styles, influencing global events for decades. The trenches became a crucible that hardened a generation of leaders who would guide their nations through the turbulent 20th century.
Number 8. Chemical warfare's terrifying debut. April 22, 1915 marked warfare's descent into chemical hell when German forces released 168 tons of chlorine gas at the Second Battle of Ypres. Soldiers described seeing a mysterious yellow-green cloud drifting toward Allied trenches, carrying death on the wind. The gas attack created a 4-mile gap in the front lines as French colonial troops fled in terror, many dying from suffocating lung damage. What made chemical weapons particularly horrifying was their indiscriminate nature. They killed slowly and painfully, causing blindness, severe burns, and permanent respiratory damage. Both sides quickly escalated their chemical arsenals, developing deadlier agents like phosgene and mustard gas. By war's end, over 90,000 soldiers had died from chemical weapons, with more than 1 million injured. The psychological impact was equally devastating, as troops lived in constant fear of gas attacks. Gas masks became standard equipment, transforming soldiers into faceless figures that added to the war's dehumanizing effect. This chemical arms race established a terrifying precedent that would haunt warfare for decades to come.
Number 7. Women's revolutionary wartime transformation. World War I shattered traditional gender roles as women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, taking on jobs previously reserved for men. Over 1 million British women worked in munitions factories, earning the nickname Canary Girls because handling explosives turned their skin yellow. Women drove buses, operated heavy machinery, worked as police officers, and served as postal workers. In agriculture, the land girls replaced male farm workers, proving women could handle physically demanding work. The war also saw women serving closer to the front lines than ever before, with nurses, telephone operators, and support staff working in dangerous conditions. Some women even disguised themselves as men to fight in combat, like Russian Maria Bakareva, who formed the Women's Battalion of Death. This massive shift in women's roles had profound social consequences, challenging the Victorian ideal of separate spheres for men and women. The war experience gave women new confidence and skills, contributing to the suffrage movement's success in many countries. Though many women were expected to return to domestic roles after the war, their contributions had permanently changed societal expectations and paved the way for future gender equality movements.
Number 6. Shell shock. Mental warfare wasn't just propaganda. It was literally rewiring soldiers' brains in ways nobody understood. Shell shock, now known as PTSD, affected hundreds of thousands of men who returned home as psychological casualties. Picture this. Soldiers who survived machine gun fire and gas attacks couldn't handle the sound of a car backfiring. Their nervous systems had been reprogrammed by constant terror, creating a generation of walking wounded that society didn't know how to handle. The symptoms were devastating: uncontrollable trembling, nightmares, paralysis, and emotional numbness. Many soldiers were branded as cowards or malingers, facing court-martial for conditions they couldn't control. The military solution was often brutal: electric shock therapy, cold baths, and public shaming. Dr. W.H.R. Rivers pioneered more humane treatments, recognizing that these men had suffered invisible wounds as real as any bullet. The war had created a new category of casualty, one that challenged traditional notions of courage and masculinity. Shell shock cases revealed the human mind's fragility when exposed to industrial-scale violence, forcing society to confront the psychological cost of modern warfare for the first time.
Number 5. Independence movements born. The war's end unleashed a tsunami of independence movements as centuries-old empires crumbled under the conflict's weight. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, once stretching from the Alps to the Black Sea, shattered into multiple nations: Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Yugoslavia, and parts of Poland, Romania, and Italy. The Ottoman Empire's collapse was even more dramatic, giving birth to modern Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. These new borders, often drawn by victorious powers with little regard for ethnic or cultural boundaries, created tensions that persist today. Poland emerged as an independent nation for the first time in over a century, while Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania gained independence from the collapsed Russian Empire. The principle of self-determination, championed by President Wilson, became a rallying cry for oppressed peoples worldwide. However, this redrawing of maps also created new minorities within new borders, leading to future conflicts. The war hadn't just changed political boundaries, it had awakened nationalist movements that would shape the rest of the 20th century and beyond. Number 4. Poison gas. World War I transformed battlefields into a nightmare of invisible death, beginning with Germany's first major gas attack at Ypres in 1915. The initial chlorine gas caused panic and a 4-mile gap in Allied lines, but it was just the beginning of chemical escalation. Both sides developed increasingly deadly agents: phosgene, which killed more soldiers than any other gas, and mustard gas, which caused horrible blistering and blindness. Gas attacks created a new form of psychological warfare. Soldiers lived in constant fear of the distinctive hiss of gas canisters or the sight of a yellow-green cloud drifting toward their trenches. The development of gas masks gave soldiers a fighting chance, but these devices were primitive and uncomfortable, adding to the war's dehumanizing effect. Gas attacks were particularly insidious because they could linger in shell holes in trenches for days, turning familiar ground into death traps. The indiscriminate nature of chemical weapons, they could kill anyone in their path regardless of military importance, made them uniquely terrifying. By war's end, chemical weapons had caused over 90,000 deaths and more than 1 million injuries, establishing them as weapons of mass destruction.
Number 3. The Harlem Hellfighters. The 369th Infantry Regiment shattered racial barriers while dodging German bullets, proving courage has no color. These African-American soldiers spent more time in frontline trenches than any other American unit, 191 days, because white American commanders didn't want them in their ranks. The French, desperate for reinforcements, welcomed them with open arms and proper equipment. The regiment earned their nickname Harlem Hellfighters from German troops who respected their fierce fighting ability. Henry Johnson became the first American to receive the French Croix de Guerre after fighting off a German raid despite severe wounds. The entire regiment was awarded the Croix de Guerre by France, receiving the recognition their own country denied them. When they returned home, they faced a heroes parade in New York, but continued segregation everywhere else. These men fought two wars simultaneously, one against German forces and another against American racism. Their service challenged the military segregation policies and helped lay groundwork for the civil rights movement. The Harlem Hellfighters proved that battlefield excellence transcends racial prejudice, even when institutions refuse to acknowledge it.
Number 2. The assassination that started it all. Archduke Franz Ferdinand's death wasn't just another political murder, it was the spark that ignited a powder keg across Europe. On June 28, 1914, Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Serbian nationalist, pulled the trigger that would unleash 4 years of unprecedented carnage. The twist? Ferdinand was actually visiting Sarajevo to promote peace between ethnic groups. His assassination occurred after a failed bomb attempt earlier that day when his driver took a wrong turn and stopped directly in front of Princip's position. This single moment of bad navigation changed world history forever. The Austro-Hungarian Empire immediately blamed Serbia, setting off a chain reaction through Europe's complex alliance system. Russia backed Serbia, Germany supported Austria-Hungary, and France honored its alliance with Russia. When Germany invaded Belgium to reach France, Britain joined the conflict. Within weeks, a regional dispute had exploded into a global war that would claim over 17 million lives and reshape the entire political landscape of the 20th century.
Number 1. Trench warfare. Trenches weren't just holes in the ground. They were underground cities of death stretching 450 miles across Western Europe. These elaborate defensive systems included multiple lines, front trenches for fighting, support trenches for supplies, and communication trenches connecting everything. The space between opposing trenches, called no man's land, varied from 50 yards to half a mile of barbed wire, shell holes, and corpses. Living conditions were nightmarish. Soldiers stood ankle-deep in mud mixed with blood, sharing their space with rats feeding on the dead. Disease was rampant. Trench foot rotted soldiers' feet, dysentery swept through units, and lice carried typhus. The constant threat of sniper fire meant movement during daylight was deadly, forcing soldiers into a nocturnal existence. Trench raids, surprise attacks on enemy positions, became a deadly game of cat and mouse. The psychological impact was crushing. Soldiers lived like moles, rarely seeing sky or horizons. This static warfare represented everything wrong with military leadership. Generals fighting 19th century battles with 20th century weapons. The trenches became symbols of the war's futility, where millions died for gains measured in yards rather than miles.
Now I have a special recommendation for you. Are you seeing this video that is appearing on the screen? Click on it because I'm sure you'll like it. Well, that's it, and until next time, Curious One.